The bad thing is the people are caught up in fear and concern and all this hype about polar shifts, and they've been worked up. They're far more likely to buy into this kind of crap.
I mean,
And
I did too at some point. There's nothing else on the net. It's difficult to figure out. I mean, this reptile stuff, I was into it. I believe most of it. And the EBEs being the slaves.
well, they have tried to represent the ABs as reptiles, and they're not.
Yeah.
Everyone that's on the inside that knows anything about them at all knows what they are. It knows that they are not reptiles. And that Serpo nonsense, that's the biggest, you know, it took a while before ufologists started seeing that for what it was, but most of them woke up and were able to. But you have a lot of people. There's one guy that puts out a UFO newsletter by the name of Victor Martinez. He and I don't get along. And he makes sure that I'm very limited in being able to reply to his list. And of course, I'm kind of on the outs with just about all of the conventional ufologists, rather cottage industry ufologists. So that's not hard to do. It's not hard to make a target out of me because I've been thrown off a lot of forums and I've been badmouthed and minimalized as much as they possibly could, even though most of them are coming around to what I was saying 10 years ago.
They came to the same points as you did a lot later.
Yeah, I was discussing how to make a metal that crafts that in to interstellar travel would have to need. And now there's an architect that's discussing what he calls memory metal.
Yeah.
And he is building modular construction for placing in the sea. And this is very interesting because all of a sudden he's talking about this memory metal at the same time that they are talking about a land mass being reduced by 15% in this recent video that we're talking about.
Yes.
When you look at that, the first thing that you're going to think about is how does that affect the shorelines all over the world? And will they at the same time use high frequency EMF, cross those signals, and create a massive heat generation over the poles?
Mm.
What they're doing is they buy up land that they figure will be the new waterfront.
All right. Mm.
And they get hold of water supplies because they know at what point aquifer or whatever is going to be polluted
Yep.
and condemned. So now they own the prime property and they own and control water.
Yes.
Now you see they're willing to, they've depopulated the earth, they own natural resources and control them, and now they're about to unleash the advances in technology that they feel they can use to make the world more pristine, and they've left it in this mess. It isn't going to get that far. In fact, the first time that there is a massive mobilization of these people to these detention camps and they start dying, this is over.
Yeah.
It should be, don't you agree?
I do.
I haven't talked to anybody like you and Tors and some other people. I haven't talked to anybody that had a moral bearing that didn't agree with that because there is no excuse and there is no living with monsters like this.
Yeah.
And they have taken the feudal order of 600 years ago, want to supplant it in today's time with this suppressive, oppressive technology that they have perverted solely to that use. You remember the emperor in Flash Gordon?
Not really.
His name, his title is Ming the Merciless. And he has that mindset they have adopted. And it's one thing to have a decadent aristocracy, but to have people so obsessed with, I mean, let's say that they reduced the population of Earth to 5% of what it is now.
Yeah.
You think that'll stop them from similar intrigues? And they're not ever going to reach a point where enough is enough.
They will keep 5% of the population and
They,
enslave them.
that's what they're aiming at. They want to reduce the population of the Earth by 95%. That
Yes,
only leaves 5% of the people here now.
in enslavement.
And what they don't realize what they've done to the Earth already and what'll happen when they start this other series of manipulations. They have no idea. And they think they can recover everything. And since they can't explain how they could recover everything, now they're disinforming that ET will do it for them.
Yes.
Well, suppose you were ET and you were looking at this. Would you help vile creatures like this?
Sure not.
No, you would want to wipe them off your shoe as fast as you could.
Yeah.
I stress the point that once you have star travel technology and you have the ability to survive it, by a matter of course, you become part of an extended community. And this is true all over. It's just not true in this part of the galaxy, it's true all over.
So the
And
science fiction movies are completely wrong in depicting the universe as a warring place.
exactly. Well, you have to look at it this way, and I've stressed this over and over again. If you have that mentality, you will retain aberrancy on
Yes.
an individual basis, if nothing else. We have it on a collective basis and we have it on an individual basis. But let's say that you had it on an individual basis only. One person with the technology to travel from one star system to another, one person can get their hands on the means to destroy a planet.
Yes. Because
And
of
yeah,
the energy stored in the spaceship, for example, is powerful enough to destroy a whole planet.
what you can do if you wanted to destroy a planet, you can do it a number of ways. You can take the drive that you use to move through space and you can turn it on a planet and change its configuration in its system. And this can be done so quickly and so extensively that you can actually crack that planet in half. And when you crack it in half, you have what's happened to this planet that's just right outside the edge of the solar system that is a debris field now and is what they want to call Planet X.
Right.
It's a debris field and it collects extraordinary amounts of helium. They gather around it, and under ideal circumstances, it could be turned into a star. But there's no reason for that because it has a certain feature that does not make it desirable to engineer as a system star. The Earth could make a wonderful sun and could warm Jupiter. And that's what's going to happen if this crap continues. The experiment with Earth as a planet to seed sentient life will be over. And the Earth will be a sun. This will be a binary system. And what it will lead to is right now, Jupiter is being prepared for that.
Yes.
You've heard what I have to say about Shoemaker-Levy and about how it targeted the planet Jupiter.
Yes.
And that could not happen that way. These objects were coming in a direct line like a train.
Yes.
from,
Was it just mass adding to the planet?
yes. Well, they were vehicles. They were under intelligent guidance, and they went in the eye of the storm on Jupiter. Now, later on, they tried to change that story around, but the very first reports, after they had all hit, showed them all entering the eye of this
Yes.
multi-planet sized storm on Jupiter, and there was no indication of impact. You know, you couldn't see very much, but believe me, if they had been the size they were, no matter what they were made up of, if they had hit with impact, they had not been craft, and they had hit with impact, there would have been changes,
All
and there
right.
would have been noticeable. You just would see them enter the eye of a storm and then nothing.
Mm,
Because
understand.
these were big enough to pick up on sensors and probes when they were millions of miles outside our system.
Yeah.
And they came in, bang, bang, bang. I think it took a period of 2 weeks before they all hit, 10 days. They hit over 10 days, all traveling in a direct line. Now, they said these were fragments from a comet. Well, anytime anything comes apart, what does it do? The force of whatever breaks it up causes these fragments to go off in different directions
Yeah.
and not stay in a line and hit the same spot, bang, bang, bang. I mean, that's just impossible. And what amazes me is that there was not a peep out of any of the astrophysicists or astronomers about that and what an incredible anomaly it was. Not a peep.
Yes. Mm. It was depicted as if the two big planets do protect Earth in that they attract uh, debris and comets and asteroids from space due to their strong gravity field.
If that were true, we'd never be able to get a probe past Jupiter, would we?
Yeah,
And we've sent probes very, very close to Jupiter on the way out.
right.
We watched Hale-Bopp come close to Jupiter. Did it get pulled in?
No, it didn't. James, if we get over the hump, will the Earth be repaired and will we stay on Earth for very, very much longer? Or
You'll have every option anyone else in the community has.
so then the Earth will not be turned into a sun?
No, if you get over the hump, every problem on Earth can be worked out right now with what we have ourselves. It's just a matter of putting priority on that. It takes time to build the coral growth back in the Gulf of Mexico, even if you use the mineral and other things to create the environment for it. It'll still take 300 years for that coral to start bedding back and adding the proper amount of salinity in the form of mainly phosphorus. Phosphorus is necessary for sea life. But to get and for the Gulf of Mexico to host the marine life that it had before, that's going to take 300 years. It can be done sooner, but not by us. There's a way of doing it. Did you ever see that ebook that Kevin Smith wrote on Venus?
No.
Venus has got several bases on it. I mean, not just bases, I mean, they practically cover the planet. But all over, even right up next to some of these bases. Now, these bases are off Earth humans. They're people from all over that have bases there. And all over, you see these organisms that look like an egg white with a yellow in it, only it's blue. You see them all over the place.
How
And
big are they?
they can be any size. Some of them can be as big as a small town. I've seen one that's about 2.5 miles across. But they're in space. You know, astronauts have taken photographs of them. But these are organisms, and they are very useful for terraforming.
Hmm.
And so what you see, and I'm sure something like that's going on Jupiter, but they don't need oxygen. They use helium. They don't give off any toxic gases or anything. They're ideal. And they start off very small. This is what was used to discredit Berggren. Berggren was given some raw data that was supposedly from the moon, and it wasn't the moon.
Hmm.
So he was given that raw data, and a person that I knew and had been a student of mine in unified consciousness betrayed Berggren, and I caught him and called him out on it. And we were sharing a forum and a website at the time, and he took the website and I took the forum. But we ended doing business, and he pops up every now and then, but I don't have anything to do with him. But yeah, he got involved with someone in NASA and they set it up. And after it was all over, he sent me an email in which he said, well, we all sell out sometime or other. That's what he said to me.
Hmm. Really. Back to these living objects or whatever we might call them. They can travel in space.
Oh,
Are they
they're,
the ones in the tether incident?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Oh, there have been astronauts that have been out spacewalking and the things that come up and brush against them.
Huh.
They were confused as UFOs, and as far as nomenclature, they are UFOs, but they're not craft. They're living organisms, and they fulfill their use. Their life expectancy comes to an end, and since they de-trigger their procreative capacity, they can live up to 2 years. But they're useful for terraforming. What they do is they eat rock.
Hmm. Are they all over the universe then?
Pretty
Or the,
much. Pretty much. Yeah.
so they come first and convert minerals to biomass
Well,
or
they're
rock
kind
to
of
minerals?
yeah, they're kind of like part of what the EMVs do. I think of them kind of like I think of them as a mechanism. They're not sentient or don't have thought processes or anything, but they're very useful. They're harmless. You could walk through their membrane.
Hmm.
It wouldn't harm you.
Yeah.
The only thing they eat is rock, hard rock.
Any science fiction writer who would have thought about things might have invented something like this. And it's strange. The strangest things are going on in the universe, and
Well,
it's
you know, the
stranger
truth.
than fiction. Yes,
Oh,
the truth
yes.
is stranger than fiction.
That's the point. You know, it's hard for me to explain because it's like I'm trying to think, to someone that doesn't know me. It must look like I'm trying to think up of a new science fiction story. But
Yes,
it's really true that the truth is stranger than fiction because your frame of reference when you go to imagine things is limited by what you know.
yes,
And to take these leaps and to say, oh my God, these are terraforming and they eat solid rock, I mean, that's not going to occur to you because you don't have a basis for comparison. And when you tell somebody the first right off, it doesn't make any sense. Then you say terraforming, you say, well, that's odd. Is there design in them? I'm sure that there is design in the creation of these critters.
yeah,
And, I firmly believe in God, but it's not a personality
no,
God. It's something beyond what I can imagine.
it's beyond what we will ever be able to understand. It stays in the unknown.
Thank God.
Yeah,
We need that because if there wasn't something like that, and if there wasn't something like the EMVs, there would be nothing to compel all of these beings that reach a certain point. It would be nothing to compel them to fall in line with,
God,
well, with everyone else.
the creative
Eh,
intelligence. Yes, yes.
yeah. You have to have a sense that there is something out there that's watchful.
Yes.
You have to have that sense.
Otherwise, it would be like in those science fictions, and it would be war all over the place,
Well,
everywhere. And
that
that
won't
wouldn't,
last. That won't last very long.
no, it won't last that very long. It would last some couple of millions or whatever years, and then everyone is dead. So then it would have to be started over again by this creative force. And this time it would think of a mechanism that puts things right before they get out of hand.
Well, I said this. I don't know this to be absolutely true. But as far as what I do know, as far as what experiences I've had, on that basis, I can say that sentience comes from one source, that it's exceedingly rare, and that if you really want to know lineage, how long intelligent life has been going on and everything, you have to sit down and figure how widespread it is, how many variations have come about due to different environments through evolution. And then you can postulate some age. But sentience comes from, as far as I know, and as far as what I project, comes from one source. And maybe that's what we could call the Godhead. If we have to have a personality, but from the way I look at it, it is so removed from
Yes,
us that we can't see its face. I mean,
never.
we would know what we were looking at. I have no frame of reference for it. And it may be so divorced from our reality, on such a plane so removed from our reality, that it knows that there is an order that we're reflecting or that we're not. And all that it sees is that it has the power to change things by its own power of expectation when things are not working out.
Mm.
And I know that I get pulled, and there's been tugs on me now for a long time. And I get pulled and end up somewhere where I've never been before, and it takes me a while to figure out where I am. But it's always in an EMV, or I
Y-
get thrown into a star charging up.
And you quite remember all of it all the time, or
It's like this. I start thinking about it, and it just starts flooding in. But you can't have it all going on at once. It'll drive you nuts. It's like, have you ever had tinnitus?
yes, I
Okay.
do have
You know,
all the
if you
time.
think about it, it can drive you crazy, right? You got to be able to shut it off. It's still there. It's just
Uh,
that your mind has compartmentalized it off so you don't hear it.
yeah,
And you can go back,
depending.
go to sleep. You can think, you can do things that you need to do, and it's not intrusive. But it's always there. It's just like I can feel it as a background right now going on. And when a UFO, an EB UFO, flies anywhere near, I get this sound like no other. I know it's there.
Really?
And yeah, it's like an added backdrop to tinnitus. It's kind of like the scream of a rabbit. You ever heard a rabbit scream?
No.
They sound kind of like a woman. If you shoot a rabbit, sometimes they'll let out these screams.
Mm. And that's what you hear when a UFO passes
Uh
by.
huh. That's what I hear. An EB
Yeah.
UFO, because EBs use a completely different drive than anyone else does.
All right.
That's why even the second technology here can't figure it out. That's why EBs are pilots of all their craft that are being utilized by black ops because they can't pilot them.
But
And EB can't tell them how it works or what. They know what they're supposed to do to make it go and maintain it. That's it.
yeah.
So they've never really worked out. And it works on the basis of gravity wave attenuation. Lazar had an idea that there was a rare isotope, and there is, but it's not used for the drive. It's a weapon.
Hmm.
But the drive is just merely gravity wave attenuation. It's like this. Suppose you were in a craft, and all that it is living quarters where you get what you need to survive, right?
Yeah, small space.
And you can associate that what is directly around you, you can adjust its gravity wave to match where you want to go, and you're there.
In the direction. You're there, just there. How
You're there,
fast?
like that.
That's what the EBEs can do.
That's what they can do. Believe me, if they couldn't, they'd all be dead by now. ETs
But
hate them. ETs get rid of them every chance they get.
are ETs as fast as they are? Sure they are.
Yeah, but that's why the EB craft crashed, because they're shot down. And the EBs are all reduced now and confined to Earth. This is the last, this is their Alamo.
Yeah.
They've made the pacts with the devil, so that they can stay protected. But if they try to leave this system, if they try to leave this planet, and there are no humans on their craft, they'll be shot down.
All right.
So it's a biosyncratic relationship that they have with black ops. Now, you don't trust EBs, but there's people that are stupid enough to do so.
Yeah.
But that legislator, McElroy, is absolutely right. ETs met with Eisenhower and they offered to get rid of the EBs.
Yes.
And he saw the briefing. And because the military wasn't happy that ETs wouldn't give us any technology, they refused them.
Yeah. But the EBEs have been here, you said, for 25,000 years already.
Off and on, yeah. Yeah. They've been renegated for longer than that.
Yeah.
But it's only been in the last few thousand years that they've become aberrant.
Have they implanted people in the past, like kings and.
No, no. Have any reason to. It was only until they began to understand that they were systematically being hunted down and removed that they became interested in involving themselves with earthbound humans. They regarded earthbound humans the same way most ETs do, as damaged goods. See, it is hard to get a handle on what's going on off planet by earthbound humans because you are only partially manifested. You don't see what's over the backyard fence.
Because I don't have the ability to look, but what would that ability be like?
Well, I can take you out to places
Yes.
and fold my arms and watch you, and you won't see what's in front of you. And then I can come up and start explaining what's in front of you, and you'll see it.
Yes.
I'm removing your psychic block.
Hard
Now,
to
there
believe.
are some people that, because of some circumstance where they have massive brain damage, and then the brain repairs and it gets rid of all that garbage that was put into you when you were growing up as a child. You get rid of that, and sometimes the brain repairs, it builds back, and there is not so much of a gap between the subconscious and the conscious mind, and you start getting access to these abilities. And the first one is that you actually begin to see completely and wholly what's in front of you. I'll give you a case in point. I was traveling, helping some people move a household. And this was from a community that's just south of Dallas. And we had loaded up a truck, and I was driving a car. We got the truck loaded up and headed out for the interstate to come into Fort Worth. We were going to store it in a warehouse in Fort Worth. And we got to the interstate right at 5 o'clock when the traffic just goes crazy. And there must have been some wrecks or something because it took us 4 hours to go from where we came up to the interstate just south of Dallas to Fort Worth, which is only 45 miles. But it took us 4 hours. And while we're on that interstate, in the sky in the west were two jet planes going straight down, frozen in the sky. Frozen. In all those 4 hours, they were frozen in the same place. And so when we get to the warehouse, or no, we stopped at a gas station before we got there. We got out, and I walked up to the two men and I said, "What did you think of the planes frozen in the sky?" And they said, "Oh, is that what they were?"
Hmm.
They would not have even remembered it because we don't, as humans, you don't see what you're not prepared to see. It's incredulity and it's epidemic.
Hard to believe.
I'm going to tell you something. How many times have you seen a UFO?
In my life,
Uh huh.
only one when I was, or two when I was 12.
Oh, no. You've seen an average of 200.
Yeah, that's what you
You
say.
see, you just didn't, you didn't, they were in front of your eyes. Your subconscious saw them.
Hard to believe. Yes,
And
if you
what
tell me.
happens when the subconscious sees something? What does the conscious mind do? It cuts it off because
Mm.
the conscious mind is deathly afraid of the subconscious. And that's the war that's going on between Earth based humanity, between one part of them and the other. There's constant war. There is a fear. All of the indecision, the ambivalence, the dichotomy, the sublimation of duality, all of this is counterproductive, disabling. We have rare occasions when we have a person with genius, and all that he has, I want to tell you that he's got more brain capacity. It's all bullshit. He
Yeah, that's
happens to
bullshit.
have a mechanical feature that enables him to go from A to B to C to D, right down the line, without coming back and trying to get his train of thought again because he's not sure or he's doubting himself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you'll ever watch people taking tests, 1 out of 100 will sit there like they're taking dictation. Other people may not be through for 2 hours, they'll be through in 30 minutes and have done flawlessly.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is? You think that's because they have more knowledge? It isn't. It's because they can go from A to B to C to D to E, and they don't have the self doubts, the ambivalence, the, well, let me see, and all that. Because they have conjoined with them an agreement between their subconscious and conscious mind no one else has. And that's what enables them to do it.
Mm.
And this is what I tried to teach. I tried to find a method where I could teach it. I felt that if I could get people that wanted unified consciousness to despise ambivalence enough, they could work and get it out of them and start building bridges between their subconscious and conscious mind. They couldn't.
Yes, I've heard. Yes.
They couldn't do it. Now, every once in a while, I come across somebody, and every one of them has had brain damage. And
Oh,
then that article that I wrote for UFO Digest, the two articles, the article on the UN officer,
yes.
and
Trepanation.
yeah, and then on the mind is a field, they went hand in hand. And what I'm getting across is that there are untold benefits to being able to reorganize what you build these mindless defenses against as you're growing up. You take a child, and I've told tours that I've actually done this. I have taken unwanted children to different parts of other planets and turned them over to people, and they performed just like their own children.
Yeah. Are they still there?
Yeah, they never want to come back to Earth. Nobody wants to come here. The idea that anybody would want this place is just,
But why did I incarnate here in this fucking place in the first place?
maybe you did what I did. I can't understand why I can't go in the chambers.
You don't
I feel
understand.
like I must have really done something bad, and you probably did too. You probably really screwed up.
Have you read my article where I described this vision that I had? Hovering above a burning planet,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
said,
I'll tell you something right now. You've been in the chambers.
hmm,
You've also been in a sun, not this sun, but you were in a sun. Because every spirit, when you die, the soul and mind come together and they form the spirit. You go to the sun. You go to
yes,
your nearest star generally. Now you can fight it if you want, but that's where you go and you charge. And then when you have charged, you'll know when you'll go in the EMVs. Now I explained how that there are civilizations that don't do this. They reach while they're still in life, although it's becoming a different kind of life. They aspire to spiritual technology and they want all be together. And they can reach where their mind is in an energy field and they leave the body and then they go somewhere. Usually, I think they go to a star because I have been in the sun before where I'm charging up and I see people. And I've tried to communicate with them, but they ignore me. If they know that I'm there, I don't
in
know.
the sun. You've seen them in the sun and try to communicate
Yeah,
to them being in the sun.
yeah, while I'm charging.
And the others are charging too.
No, I don't think these people, I think they live there. They've established themselves there. And
Oh,
they may be these civilizations that aspire to spiritual technology and they're not going to die. So
hmm.
they stay together. They want to stay together. They don't go to the EMVs. And as far as I know, they haven't gone to the EMVs.
So they have stayed together in the sun then.
They can go anywhere they want, but I don't know. All I know is that I think that might be what the people that I see in the sun when I'm charging or other
Hmm.
stars. Now, I don't always see them, but I have seen them more often than not.
Yes. So, and these people don't want to go to the EMVs?
No, uh-uh. They want to be together. They
All
want to
right.
maintain some kind of, they don't realize, I guess, what the EMVs are like,
Mm-hmm.
but they have this feeling of togetherness. They want to
Yeah.
maintain, they have an idea of their lineage, I think, from
Yes.
what I can tell. Now, I've talked to these, I had talked to the Druge and I talked to the Avoid, and I know what they were like before they left to go
Yes.
wherever they go. When they were in the spirit, the I'd say they had come into spiritual technology, but they hadn't left. And believe me, there's nothing finer, no greater experience on earth than to be able to talk to these people,
Hmm.
to know what they're
Uh,
going through, to how they feel. Their energy is so incredible. I mean, they're like suns in themselves. There
hmm.
is a point where energy is life that doesn't die. I mean, there's no explanation of why suns can burn for billions of years and not burn out. There's no, I can give you the reason. It's the helium, but and how that works. But these are all miracles in terms of the perfection of these things existing. I mean, you can sit
Yes.
there and reason it out and draw it out on paper, whatever, and that's been tried here by physics. But the physics here is so faulty and frail. that you
Yes.
come across someone like Nikola Tesla and he just blows everything out of the water. And nobody can figure out how he does it because they want to stay within that framework, within that flawed framework of what they've been taught. You get out of that framework and you can understand Nikola Tesla and you can know where he's coming from and why what he could do would work.
Mm.
I mean, electricity, this stupidity about electricity, electrons running like billiard balls through wire and crap like that's all BS. It's all field.
It's just a model that they put out very early on and never upgraded.
Oh, yeah. And, I like to use the helium paradox to show people just how absurd they are and how they'll lie and then they'll cling to this lie and then not to be found out and get egg on their face, they'll keep it going. But the amazing thing is, you can go to scientists that teach, that have been in on different projects and everything, that don't know that. And the question you'll ask yourself, how can they be a good scientist and not know things like that? And they can because of the compartmentalization. They don't have to know anything but a series of tasks, and they don't
Yes.
have to know any more.
Specialization,
Yeah, they know lab
compartmentalization.
technique. Yeah, if you know lab technique and you know the kind of math that's being used and you know this and that, you can punt, what we call punt. You can't produce, but you can kick the ball down the field and hope that it sets the opposition back a little further than if you just gave it to them there where you are. It's what we call punting. And it's dire. I mean, I have talked to people that should know better, got into an argument one time with a physicist over helium, and I had him so upset that he was crying. Literally,
Great.
he was crying. And that's when I just shut up, looked at him, and he just shook his head and walked off.